everyone, to episode 31 of Kiss Meets the Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Eli Clausen.
And I'm not Eli.
That is Barton.
Barton Fink.
Everyone 31. That kind of rhymed. I just freestyled.
I don't get it.
Man. So I wanted to start off real quick and say apologies again for the audio problems with last week's episode. Hopefully you were able to kind of get past that and continue watching the show after those issues. Hopefully this episode here won't have those same issues. So enough of that. What's going on? Any new Kiss related stuff going on?
I seen online that Peter Criss did a meet and greet in New York last night.
Really?
I don't know if it was a Kiss related thing or if it was just the meet and greet for him or what, but I seen some footage on, I think it was YouTube.
Well, didn't they just have the New York Expo, or am I mistaken?
It might have been. It might have been with that. I'm not sure because that was fairly recent.
Okay, yeah, it might have been. So I don't know. I kind of wonder. I would hope that maybe he's going to do at least like a small U.S. leg of his farewell tour, if that's what you want to call it.
Call him up.
Yeah, let's call him. We'll ask him next week when he's on the show. Yeah.
Right.
But I'd like to think that the stuff he did in Melbourne wasn't going to be the only thing he does for his final shows, which is kind of odd that he decided to do those first. I mean, it is what it is, but I would hope that he does a small U.S. leg, especially if he gets either in Ohio or somewhere close enough to, try to go see him one last time or whatever.
Well, the thing is, my impression of him doing all the stuff that he's lined up to do in the past, I don't know, couple months or whatever that we know about, to me that, and I don't know this, of course, but it seems like that's an indication that he's convinced that Kiss is not going to call him back and he's not going to be involved with Kiss. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I kind of don't think he would want to anymore at this point. And I mean, especially reading his book, it's like, why you'd almost think like, why would he want to when he's speaking that bad of the experience when the reunion and Psycho Circus happened, the stuff that was going on and how they were treated like employees instead of members of the band and whatnot. Like, you would almost think like, why would you want to go back? And
It's funny because I remember watching footage of when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and when one of them was speaking, the other ones were just like best friends.
yeah.
They just seemed that way, and I'm not saying that they weren't. Well, they're not best friends, obviously, but I mean, it's almost like they're different people when they're around each other than they are when they're not.
Yeah, when they're face to face, they're old chums and reminiscing on old times. But then when they're separate, talking to the press or whatever, they're spewing, trash and whatnot. And I don't know, it just kind of, it kind of pissed me off in a way when I was reading that stuff in Peter's book. Actually, today I was reading it, and just how they would talk to them and pretty much telling them, you're an employee and not a member of the band. And then he was kind of talking about the whole Psycho Circus stuff, with the studio stuff that we know about now. And
It seems to me like, and this has been semi-documented, it's almost like that Kiss, meaning all four original members, were sort of just forced into this situation. It's almost like, it's like if you're in a job and you're working with people that you can't stand, you just sort of, there's nothing you can do other than quit your job. So
right.
It's almost like they were all forced into this, and they didn't have a choice about the reunion. I don't know.
Well, the way it sounds, his version of it is Gene, of course, saw the money bags, once the expo and Unplugged happened. So for them, it was more about the money. For Ace and Peter, they truly wanted to play. They want, according to Peter, he felt like he wanted to redeem himself from, playing bad back in the 70s, because he was so screwed up at the time and, that kind of stuff. But, and at the time, he's fairly honest about it. He kind of needed the money too, so it didn't hurt. And it definitely helped out, and I'm sure Ace was kind of sort of in the same boat. But then, you know, you think everything's kind of different, and then you realize that it's all the same and almost worse at the same time, because now they didn't have Bill Aucoin or Sean Delaney there to help kind of stick up for them. It was, according to him, it was more so of Gene and Paul definitely getting their way now more than they ever did.
Well, and not only that, but it seems to me like just by watching that, the Second Coming, and then also reading all their books and stuff about it, um, they didn't really. I don't think they were really in touch as much as they should have been with their past on what they were basing the reunion tour on, as far as the stage and all that, because Bill Aucoin had said some things about that, how it didn't look right, and he can't believe that they were doing it the way they were doing it, and there was a lot of details that he remembered. It's like they're not even doing it like that. Why? And it's because I think Paul and Gene were oblivious to a lot of it, and I don't think Peter and Ace was really aware of a lot of those things to begin with,
Right.
even at the time back then.
Right.
So they didn't really have any direction. I mean, they had Doc McGee, but he was like new with them. He hadn't been with them back in the '70s, so it was a totally different thing.
Right, and it sounds like Doc was kind of teaming up with Gene and Paul. Also, he'd say they'd be sitting there at a table. The three of them would be talking about band business, and Ace and Peter would be sitting there like they weren't even there, and they'd try to jump in and say something. They'd look over, oh, did you say something? And kind of condescending, that kind of stuff. And again, this is Peter's take on it. I don't know. You kind of take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But I could tell Peter definitely. He's not afraid to speak his mind either. He's, especially to Gene and Paul, he's confronted and said things to them. Back in the '70s during the reunion tour, all that stuff. It's definitely wasn't sun and rainbows the whole time.
I think Paul and Gene's idea of who they are is they're just automatically, they put themselves at a different level than, and then you add the fact that Ace and Peter left the way they did the first time, is going to create those feelings of resentment and things.
Right.
So, but I think Paul and Gene, I don't know if needed the money is the right word, but I don't think that KISS was where they wanted it to be. They were starting to get back to where they, back to what I would consider a KISS sound and look,
right.
By Revenge. But I still don't think that the fans were caught up with them yet. I don't think that their fan base was where they wanted it to be. And I think that Paul and Gene, and of course the way Gene is with the money, it was the money too, but I think they felt that they could sort of reclaim a lot of that by putting the makeup back on, just like they did with taking it off.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, they weren't doing too well at that time, so immediately he had that light bulb go off above his head, reunion, all that stuff, and it was all about the money. And then, but right from the get-go, Ace and Peter were just hired employees. They weren't members of the band anymore, which didn't make sense to them, obviously. I mean, I would be the same way, but again, you kind of have to just grin and bear it and go with the flow for as long as you can, and accept those paychecks. But
if you watch the little bit of the footage of that first show that Peter did Hard Luck Woman on,
yeah,
and then you watch the Unplugged, you'll see Gene, when they start a song, like with Peter and Ace, he'll look at the crowd to get their reaction.
Mm-hmm.
He instantly, as soon as they start singing, he'll look at the crowd to see what's going on. And I noticed it the most when Peter got up on stage to do Hard Luck Woman. Gene was looking at the crowd the whole time, practically.
Yeah.
And he's, he's thinking all this stuff. It's like, okay, this might be a possibility.
Yeah. I swear, it's like, as much as you love the band and the guys, I guess, and then you hear this kind of stuff that goes on. It kind of pisses you off at the same time. It's like, God damn it, like what an asshole. But it's such like a love hate thing sometimes with them.
Yeah, but I'd like to go back and read Peter's book again to
Yeah,
refresh my memory on a lot of it.
yeah, I'm getting kind of close to the end. But like I say, it gets. I've said this the last probably few episodes. It gets harder to put down the more I go, into it. Talking about the whole
What
Psycho Circus stuff, and
is that where you're at now?
yeah, that was I pretty much just passed all that. He's talking about how, of course, originally Gene and Paul wasn't going to let Ace or Peter have any songs, and Ace was persistent as always. He would call Gene almost every hour, and I want a song on the album, or I'm quitting the band. They obviously finally caved in. With Peter, he said he actually sat down with Tommy Thayer, and
So who do you think they're going to get for the Kiss Expo coming up? Do you have any? I mean, I know who
for
we'd like to see, but who do you think it's going to be?
for Indy,
Yeah, I mean, I know
I
it's a long ways away, but
yeah. By the way, we're back. Little hiccup with the program, so well, a little hiccup, so to speak. Um,
well, let me ask you real quick what we were talking about. I don't know where you cut it off at.
I was talking about what Peter was saying about Psycho Circus. He was working with Tommy Thayer.
Yeah, I was going to
Um,
ask you, those two songs that he wrote with Tommy Thayer, are those demoed? Do we know what they are?
I don't believe they are. One of them was a love song that he wrote for Gigi. Um, he, and then it kind of confused me because it said something about we wrote a song, like basically saying he wrote the song called Psycho Circus, but I'm assuming it's a different version or something from the way I read it.
Hmm.
But anyway, he was saying um, he was getting ready to take all the demos into Gene and Paul so they could hear them. Well, I guess behind his back he said that, I forget what word he used to refer to Tommy Thayer, but it wasn't a nice one. I guess he had snuck behind Peter's back and ran all them demos to Gene and Paul himself before Peter can get to them. And so then it was kind of like he was sort of taking the credit for the songs instead of Peter getting the credit. Um, and then, of course, I guess Paul actually wrote the "I Finally Found My Way," the one he did on the album.
That's what I was going to ask you. I thought that Paul wrote that, and
Yeah,
not just because you could probably see the song credit if you looked, but it sounds like a Paul Stanley song to me.
right. And he said it was like he said it was a blatant attempt to rewrite Another Beth, except for that song sucked. And
Well,
he
I
said,
like the song. Do you like the song?
I don't mind it. I mean,
It's not like the best song ever, but I like the song.
yeah, if I'm listening to that whole album, it's I don't mind it. But he was talking about how it was like damn near like Gestapo recording that thing because Paul had to be right there in the room with him, and just all over him about it. So that kind of stuff. But
Well,
it's just,
would you consider Paul and Gene to be like control freaks?
oh, 100%.
And do you think that if they wasn't, and this could be a whole topic for a show, if they weren't, what do you think Kiss would have, how you think it would have went through the years? I mean, it's sort of what we were talking about on last week's episode with, if Paul had been replaced, but, if Paul and Gene weren't the people that they are as far as, being control freaks, I guess, for lack of a better word, do you think that anything would have ever got done, or you think it all been left up to the producer to a certain degree? I mean, you've heard stories about Destroyer and how Bob Ezrin had to, corral them in and blow the whistle and all that because they were young and sort of wanting to mess
I,
around. But I just wonder if they would have always been like that.
I do like that for another topic. I I think, yeah, if they weren't such control freaks, that for one they probably would have had Bill Aucoin and Sean Delaney around a lot longer because they just wanted them out of the way so they could get their way.
That's
Um,
what I was getting ready to say. I think by time, what was it? Was it Creatures of the Night?
right, I
Right.
think it was. I think it was right about there. Maybe even look it up.
And I think that they, I mean, of course, I wish was there,
Yeah.
as a fly on the wall, of course. But, my opinion is, I think that they sort of were full of themselves, because if you watch interviews from the Creatures of the Night era with Paul and Gene, they're really full of themselves right there. And I
Yeah.
also know that that's part of what they were trying to prove to try to, because of the elder and all that stuff. And they were trying to, at one interview, I think they're in the back of a limousine. Paul says, "Yeah, we're back and we're stomping heads."
Hmm.
It's like that sounds like something Gene would say, not what Paul would say. So it's almost like they had this attitude where, okay, we're just going to kill everyone and everybody's going to have to deal with it. You know what I mean?
I feel like they were kind of cocky at that time because it was like, oh, see, we told you that we'd be all right without Peter and Ace, and now on top of that, we told you we'd be all right taking the makeup off. So it was almost like they got a little cocky at that time,
Mhm.
and you know, what happened is what happened. But yeah, I don't know. It's just you see all that. Back at the time, you think everything was so like like they were getting along great again. The way they put it out there, and
I
yes,
think that's
that's
partly the reason that Vinnie Vincent only lasted for as long as he did, because I think that they had went through all those years with Peter and Ace and tried to hang on to it. And once that was broken, as far as original members, when Vinnie started doing whatever he was doing, I think that they just didn't have a problem with just like, okay, you're done.
well. I think not only that, he probably didn't put up with their shit. Um,
Right.
he never signed that contract to be the hired employee as they were probably wanting him to be. Even back then, that's probably how they were thinking.
Probably.
Um, so
Yeah, because that's what Eric was.
right, and I guess you might as well say him and Tommy. They're just hired employees. I mean,
Yeah.
if
Both
that's
Eric.
yeah, well, yeah, yeah. If that's how they treated Ace and Peter, you could bet that Eric and Tommy today are the same way. So
Well, do you think? I don't think Bruce was treated that way, though. I think, and Mark St. John didn't seem to be, added on that way.
right, but then Bruce recently just came out and said that he pretty much just rolled with the flow too. He tried not to really be, you know, combative and that kind of stuff, button heads. He just kind of rolled along with the flow, and
I think that's why Tommy and Eric worked so good in the band for all these years,
yeah,
because they are those kinds of people. They just like, okay, whatever,
right,
because they're not trying to be the boss. And I think with Peter and Ace, especially Peter, I think they had that boss mentality because they were there at the beginning and we formed this, so I have a say so. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's
right,
totally right to feel that way, but it's like a totally different situation.
right, and really Tommy's pretty much been with the band in a way longer than the symphony because he pretty much played on the Psycho Circus other than like a couple songs, um, and then a few other writing things here and there. Um, but another thing is it just seems like it seems more so Gene can't get rid of the whole chastising Peter and Ace for their past demons and not letting it go and almost treating them like they're still that way.
Well, I
He's always
think the biggest part with Gene is, he's under the impression because he never had a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, he doesn't understand and he doesn't try to understand it. But then he overlooks the fact that he used to have a sex addiction, that he was a womanizer like his father was, according to a lot of the stuff that came out on, I don't know if it was in interviews or Family Jewels or whatever the real story was.
right,
Uh, and because he's married Shannon and changed his mind and changed his ways, I think that's even made it worse in some way. But he should have realized that, well, supposedly, Ace had got off of alcohol and he's straightened up for how many years now he's been sober, and people can change their mind. He should realize that and he says this all the time when he talks about Shannon and how he used to be a fool and about marriage and this and that, and it's the
It's
same thing.
it's like he can't get off of it because it's almost like he would be saying that he was wrong in the long run if he stopped saying it. Just the other night he did that solo show there in Indiana. My buddy was telling me that went, before they played Cold Gin, he made a little kind of tongue-in-cheek remark referring to Ace, about the alcoholism type thing. It's like, really, like that's cheap. It's petty.
Well, after all this time, I mean, it's completely, not that it wasn't always pointless, but especially now, I mean, it's not like I mean, what do you have to gain from saying those things?
Right. Peter talked about there was a point where, back when Peter had first left the band, in 80 or whatever that was, 79, they pretty much just always used the lines about, creative differences and this and that. Well, down the road, during the reunion stuff, come to find out, Gene had done an interview, and of course he starts spewing out all the real reasons behind that, talking about all the past stuff, his alcoholism, drugs, all that stuff with Peter. And Peter found out about it, and he was really pissed off about it, mainly because his daughter didn't know any of that stuff that he had went through and done in the past, and now this was going to be how she found out was him. And he was pretty irate and confronted Gene about it, and of course Gene tried to turn it around and say that the media switched up his words and this and that, but he just can't ever say I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's always turn it around on somebody else. Or
Well, I read recently, I don't remember what I was looking at. I was reading some stuff on Michael Jackson, and I guess that Kiss was invited to play a Michael Jackson benefit, and they were canceled. They canceled at the last minute, or were made to cancel, whatever you normally would do, because of some stuff that Gene had said. He'd said that, oh, I'm 100% positive that Michael molested those little boys.
Yeah.
And they were getting ready to do a benefit for Michael Jackson or whatever, something pertaining to that. It's like everything he says gets him in trouble, but it's almost like he sees that as a positive thing, not a negative thing.
Yeah, and then like saying stuff about suicide and people that are depressed and all that kind of stuff too. And then he never really apologizes for it. But then, oh, God forbid you ask him a simple question about it, and then you're blocked on Twitter, like I am.
It's like that whole thing that went on with Paul and Gene. Paul had to apologize, or he didn't have to, but I don't know if it was really an apology, but he said something, about when Prince had passed away, what Gene had said, and then it got Nikki Sixx involved and got Shannon Tweed involved. It's like a whole big thing. It's like,
and Paul stepped in and
really
shut his ass up.
Right, and I'm sure he just has to do that. And now that Paul is to a point in his life where he's more open about, hey, I'm just going to say whatever I want to say.
Right.
I think it's came out. He's probably always done that, but it's been behind closed doors.
And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that Gene has said where Paul's he kind of just blows it off like, oh, it's Gene being Gene. But certain things like that, you're pretty much crossing the line there, and that can really affect the band in general. So that's, he had to step up like he does once in a while, and kind of put him in his place and shut him up. And
the thing is, if you're in the public eye, and obviously I'm never going to have this problem, but you have to have a self-censor, and I think Gene is under the and there's a lot of people that's probably in the music business, at least, that they think that you've heard there's no such thing as bad publicity. Well, there is, if you're saying things that's going to affect your I won't say record sales, because that don't exist much anymore, but if it's going to affect your band in some way, a negative way, lose your fans because of the stuff you say.
Right. And my thing is, like, what the hell do you have to gain at this point in your life and career that you still need to try to get publicity off of things that you say? Like, get
Right.
real. You don't need it. Like, you don't need to be making all these comments and then you turn around and say the opposite thing 2 months later,
Well,
contradicting yourself.
it's the same thing with like Ozzy Osbourne, for example. When he was what he's notorious for, peeing on the Alamo and biting the bat's head and everything. He didn't do that stuff for publicity. He did it because he was out of his mind.
Right.
So, and he doesn't do that stuff now because there was really no reason for him to do it then, but it was sort of different in that way. He was just oblivious to it. But he's not trying to outdo himself now because it's not like something
No.
he's really that proud of, I don't think.
Well, and then I've even heard recently that he actually didn't piss on the actual Alamo himself. He pissed across the street from the Alamo.
Yeah, I did hear
But of
that.
course, they twist it around and they got to make it that he pissed on the actual thing. And, it's just the way they like to twist things around.
I mean, back in the 70s, with Gene and his tongue and the blood and all that, it was, of course, being young kids too, you automatically think that stuff's real.
Right,
And
right.
you hear all kinds of rumors, I mean, his tongue was a cow's tongue grafted on, and, you hear all this stuff, and it's like, he probably never said, no, it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't recall that he ever did. He always just sort of, he danced around it, and all the time. And nowadays, he's got all these stock answers for everything that he
Right.
says over and over. So I don't know. I mean, it probably sounds like we're sitting here hating on Gene and a lot of them, all them guys in general. But just kind of speaking our minds here and the.
Well, the thing is, I know no one's perfect and everybody says things that they wish they hadn't said. But, I would like to think that if I was in that position, whether it be Gene Simmons or whatever person, I hope that I would think a little more before I'd say things, especially during an interview. If someone's interviewing you, they know you're Gene Simmons. That's who they're interviewing, and they're asking you questions. You don't have to be honest.
Right.
It's like you said with stock answers. I don't agree with that either.
Yeah.
I think that they should be honest, but not to a point where they're giving their opinion if it's something, like, for example, if Gene truly had those opinions that he said on different things that got him in trouble, he knows when he needs to draw the line and not go over the line. But I don't know if he doesn't think, or if, like you said, if he's just trying to provoke, for what reason.
Well, Paul's just as guilty too. He's got a lot of stock answers and
Oh yeah.
he repeats a lot of things. But with Ace and Peter, they would always give you a straight up answer. They don't have stock answers, and Eric Carr was that way. Every other person in Kiss has been that way. Well, I don't know. Tommy and Eric now, you kind of get some stock answers from them. I've noticed, but
Eric's a little more honest.
right, but
But I think,
he'll dance around stuff too. So.
yeah, he dances around, but it's funny because I've noticed that he does it in a different sort of way to where it's not as obvious.
Mm-hmm. Well,
If you're not
sometimes
paying attention.
well, sometimes he comes off like he's offended and getting all
Right.
defensive. It's like, whoa, calm down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's just because he's been with the band for so long and he was a fan first. I mean, I don't know, because with Tommy, I mean, Tommy seems like he's probably I don't mean, I know Eric is hyper because he's a drummer and he's been labeled as being hyper, always ready to play and all that stuff. But Tommy seems like he's just like a lot more laid back, and it's almost like he don't try to cover anything up, but he
Right.
doesn't say anything that he's not allowed to say, because
Yeah,
I think, like you were saying with Tommy taking those demos to Paul and Gene, I think Tommy he's loyal to Paul and Gene more than anyone else,
oh yeah.
because technically those are his bosses, if you want to look at it like that.
Well, look at it this way. obviously a huge fan too at first. He was in a tribute band, and then you get a job working with your favorite band, being the tour manager and all, videographer, all that, and then of course, being in the band as a member now or a hired member. Of course, you're going to be yes sir to anything they want and do, and you're not going to take a chance of losing that meal ticket. And I don't think at this point it's in any danger anymore, honestly, because any hopes of the original four again is never going to happen.
Well, I think especially now because with interviews and stuff that you've heard them say, and then watching, any them in concert and stuff, I think that Paul and Gene considers Tommy and Eric to be their friends as well as a member of Kiss, because they get along so well. I think they respect them. I think it's a mutual respect that they all have.
I don't even think whenever they finally do a final show that you'll see the original four play together for that. I don't think it'll happen.
I have a hard time thinking that it will.
You know why? They're going to want them to come out and play in no makeup and no costume, just like the Hall of Fame, and it ain't going to fly.
Right.
So that's going to, I'd hate to see that happen if it's, once the true end is there and it happens, for it to go down that way.
Well,
but I already see it coming.
It's a thing that I've noticed that, and I've said this probably on a podcast before. When one thing happens, when Kiss does one thing, they carry that through, and they go back to it from time to time. Like with the Unplugged, for example. They had Peter and Ace come up, and there was none of that makeup issue because the band wasn't wearing makeup at the time.
Right.
And the two guys that were in Kiss, aside from Paul and Gene, didn't have a makeup design. They were never in makeup. So that was not an issue. But you fast forward to now, and they're in makeup again, and there's two guys that's in their makeup playing their characters. It's just like, it's almost like that they can't just, okay, we'll just leave that alone, and we're just all going to get up here and play electric, play acoustic, whatever, no makeup, and just 4 guys or 6 guys or 8 guys, whatever. And it's almost like that they don't know what to do now. It's like they can't be all, or it has to be, it's got to be makeup now because that's what we're currently doing. I mean, I don't know. I love Kiss and makeup, but I've said this before. If they took the makeup off tomorrow and said we're never going to wear it again, but we're going to continue to tour, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Sometimes I feel like that would be a better scenario right now.
And it would free them up so much more. And I think that they would last a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm. And they could do more, like I said, they could do a strict acoustic tour and play a lot of these smaller venues and that type of stuff. And
it'd be a lot easier on them.
And with the Hall of Fame thing, it's like I still think they didn't need to play it in makeup. Obviously I know that that's what people would have preferred, is to see them doing it in makeup, but it wouldn't have happened. I mean, what were they going to do? Walk out in full makeup and costume to accept the Hall of Fame award and all that? No. So maybe they would have if everything was figured out, but to me that would have been a little bit of a farce in a way, if that makes sense. But
yeah, because I don't know. It's just like, because it was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think that the reason they were there and inducted was not for the right reasons, first of all.
Right.
And because of that, for them to come out and do what is expected by the Hall of Fame, or by, it's just like you said, and those guys, Ace and Peter, yeah, they're original guys, but they're not currently in the band. So you're sort of going backwards, but then you're sort of going forwards at the same time. Because, they didn't want to do that, because they thought, okay, well, it's going to create this whole, now what do we do?
Right.
Like with Unplugged.
Regardless if they perform with or without makeup with Peter and Ace, or with all the guys for that matter.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, it's they all that problem could have been involved if they just did it without the makeup everybody. And then at the same time, all this with, Ace and Peter's makeup, if they hadn't sold the rights, released the rights to them in the first place, then wouldn't have been in this situation for, the people that it bothers so much. But, like I say, I get it, but at the same time, it's like I've just learned to live with it. And
Well,
like we always say, it's better to have one version of Kiss than no Kiss.
the thing that I can't understand, and I know there's a lot of politics in a band generally, and then you add a band like Kiss with the makeup and costume just adds this whole nother complication when it comes to a situation like that. But it'd be like, okay, if you think about the past and the different eras and the different looks and band members that's been in Kiss, there's been times, like say with Ace and Peter, they have different outfits because like on Dynasty than they did on Destroyer. So to me, it's no different. It's like, okay, today I'm wearing a tie, and yesterday I had a black jacket on, and today it's blue. They could have, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know why that. I know why it complicates it, but at the same, it's just
Yeah. I totally agree.
a couple songs, and it's going to be for this show, and they're going to broadcast it, and that's the end of that. Let's move on. Why? I don't know why it was so hard to do that.
And, I'm not, at the same time, like, I'm not blaming Eric or Tommy, but you would almost think that they would be grateful enough to say, okay, you know what? Let them wear their makeup because it's theirs in the first place. We'll play without it.
And they could have said that for all we know.
Right, they may have offered, and then Gene and Paul, being the control freaks, didn't want to let it fly. But 'cause it was all about the way the band is right now. And this.
Do you really think that the Hall of Fame wanted the 4 original members not just to be inducted only, but do you think that they wanted just them to perform? Do you think that was completely true, or you think that was just Paul making things up so they wouldn't have to do it?
I'm sure they probably did just want the original 4 to play. I mean, that's all that got inducted. So
because
why
Paul
not?
was saying that he wanted everyone that was in Kiss to perform, and it's like I sort of thought that was odd that Paul said that, because it just didn't make sense to me. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't true, but to me it didn't seem like that's something that he would want.
Well, he wanted every member to be inducted, that's for sure. Which I 100% agree.
I agree with that, yeah.
Because he talks about how Grateful Dead had all 100 members and all that kind of stuff. Those bands, and I agree. It's like I don't know where that where that point is where they compare the bands to be able to induct all the members at once, and then this band you can only induct the original.
I think it's the elitist Rolling Stone type of mentality. With if it's Bruce Springsteen, it's okay, but if it's U2, or I don't know, U2's got the same members they've always had, but there are certain bands that okay, whatever you guys want to do, we're perfectly okay with. But then there's other bands like, let's say, Kiss, and some bands that are that type of band that they're not fans of. They're automatically going to control as much of it as they can, or they're just, okay, well, if you don't play our game, then you're not going in.
Right. And then, at the same time, though, it's like you think of Kiss, you're 90%, most people are going to think of the original 4 because that is the lineup that started it all. That's the lineup that went through all the hardships and, being broke and all that stuff. So, it's like I get it, but then at the same time, a lot of them other guys are, not a lot of them, every other member were all part of it too. They kept the ship afloat. They, put plenty of years and blood, sweat, and tears and all that. And
well, like with Bruce Springsteen, and I don't have a problem saying something negative because I don't really like Bruce Springsteen that much. I mean, as far as he's got a couple good songs I like, but as far as an artist, I don't like everything he's done, put it that way. But when I think about Kiss, and of course I'm a Kiss fan, so I know the history, the Kisstory. you know, as far as from the beginning, because it's interesting and you learn about it because you want to know. I don't know anything about what Bruce Springsteen went through uh, to, you know, to have a hit record, to have a hit song, to be famous. I'm sure he had a story like everyone, but
Mm.
I don't I don't correlate it the same way as I would. You know, I think that Kiss is more, and this is probably wrong for me to say considering I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like that Kiss deserves, they deserve it more.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
And
and now I'm going to have to go back and as much as I don't want to, just to give myself more information, I want to go and see if I can find some information on the origins of Bruce Springsteen.
yeah, because to me, it's like he's just always been one of those blue collar musicians that attracts a lot of that fan base. You know, like him, Billy Joel. You know, a lot of those kind of guys. And so I agree. I've always kind of felt the same way. And you know, as far as Kiss, I feel like, you know, out of all of them, the one guy that almost should be in more than the others is Eric Carr. I mean, the guy, you know, literally gave blood, sweat, and tears in his life for the band, pretty much. I mean, he was so dedicated to the end. I mean, he was sick as hell, and he was still like demanding to be a part of that music video, and you know, to still play and make an appearance, and as bad as he felt at the time. And you know, I mean, that right there, he should be in by himself alone for that kind of, you know, dedication and you know, heart and love that he had for playing and entertaining.
Well, I think that my opinion is, from what I was saying with Bruce Springsteen, I think the people that runs the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they don't know and appreciate, like you would say, with all the stuff that Eric Carr did, or the other band members, or you know, this or that, you know, as far as influence the Kiss had and all this kind of stuff, because they're not a Kiss fan,
Right.
and they don't have that, you know, interest. So there's nothing there for them to go by other than it's like, they just wear makeup. They don't mean nothing. You know, they're not this band or that band. It's more important. So we're just going to, so people will shut up. That's why they're going in. And I think to a certain degree, that's the biggest part of what it was.
Yeah, right. And then some of the bands that still got snubbed this year that should have been in, but oh no, we'll put Pearl Jam in right away. But these guys are still going to get snubbed that should have been in 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, that kind of shit. It's just all, a lot of it is favoritism and what's, you know, what they can write a good article about in the next issue of Rolling Stone, and you know, somebody like Pearl Jam.
It's like Nirvana. The first year they were eligible, they went in.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree that they should be in, absolutely. But there's other bands, and this is a whole separate podcast within itself. You know, there's other bands that still haven't went in, and there's other bands that for years and years and years was eligible and finally did. For some, I don't know how they managed to get in there, but finally they did.
Right. And then, but like I say, like, I can't remember all the names now, but there were, you know, some bands that didn't make it this year that still should have been in. But then to go ahead and induct Pearl Jam over top of one of those bands is, to me, just kind of a slap in the face. It's
And you like Pearl Jam?
Nah, I mean, not really, but
Well, I like them more now than I did.
I mean, I like their well-known songs, and that's about it. I've never really cared to go, and I to this day, like today, like I honestly don't understand all the hype about them. Like, they're looked at as almost like these living legend type bands, like almost like Zeppelin or something like that. You know, like they're almost
Well, just
put on
out of
that
curiosity, from those type of bands, if you want to use the term grunge, I don't know what else you'd call them. What would be the one that stands out for you that you think that they're above the other ones?
above the other grunge bands.
Yeah, as far as, because a lot of people do put Pearl Jam at the top. I mean, I don't.
No, I don't either. They wouldn't even be in my top five. Alice in Chains would be first and foremost for me. And then you got, Soundgarden and, STP and Nirvana, you know, stuff like that. At one time, Collective Soul, like, I guess they were kind of grunge. I like a lot of their stuff a lot better than I like Pearl Jam stuff to this day. So they may not even be in my top 10. I don't know if, but and it's not that I like hate the band and I can't stand them. It's because I do like a lot of their just the mainstream songs, but I just don't understand that whole. And U2 is the same way. It's like they get put on this pedestal like they're these giants among
Well,
musicians, and Beyonce, even that Beyonce shit, like how they try to
well, my
put.
thing with U2 is, and I don't listen to it, but I haven't heard a good U2 song in probably 20 years. I don't think there's anything that they've done since, and I'm being very selective, since probably Zooropa was the last thing that I could halfway tolerate.
Yeah,
And that was when they were getting very experimental. Of course, I appreciated that because any band that's going to do weird stuff, I'm all for that. But then after that album, I don't know what happened. It's sort of they went this Bon Jovi route where they're just completely a different band. They're nothing like what they were when they started, and they're almost like trying to push that away. It's like that's not who we were. We were never that, And it's
yeah,
like, but
and
yeah.
I don't know what it is, but all these years, like U2's music has always just been so boring to me. Like it just something about the sound of it, and Bono's voice. I mean, on great occasion, I can listen to a little bit of U2, but it's not something I regularly feel like listening to.
Well, I
But
remember seeing their videos on MTV in the 80s, and
yeah,
it was okay, but they were sort of, people were clamoring about them even then.
yeah,
I remember thinking back then, it's like, they're okay, but I don't see anything other than that.
right. And my favorite song is probably "Mysterious Ways"
Yeah,
of
that's one of my
anything
favorites.
they did. And but that Zooropa you were talking about, the best song on that album was the one they did with Johnny Cash, in my opinion.
Well, I think the song that I'm familiar with on there, I'm not familiar with all the songs, is Lemon.
See, I don't even know that.
I think that's on there. But then there's that song Numb that the Edge
Yeah,
does. I think
yeah.
that might have been on the album before that. That's a decent song.
I always remember that video back
Mhm.
in the day. That was weird.
But then they were doing stuff like Discotheque and some of that. It's like, who is this band? It's like they got so far away from what they originally were to sell records. Every band does it. I mean, Kiss is a prime example of a band that goes out of where they normally should stay to try to sell records. And U2, they veered off two or three times for two or three albums and did that. Not
Yeah, it
saying
was.
bad. That's some of their better stuff because it's not U2.
It was that same time frame where bands like them and Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, they were all like changing their sound and being more radio.
Yeah,
And
Aerosmith really did that too. Yeah,
and you kind of have that happening again now with bands like Papa Roach and Linkin Park, a couple bands like that. They're all changing their sound and style and sounding more radio friendly and like a pop rock band than what they used to be. So I don't know. It's just anyway. Earlier you were talking about the Indie Expo.
oh yeah.
Um,
By
so
the
in,
way, I don't know if you'd said because I know we had to start over, but did you mention what this episode's about?
oh, actually I didn't. If you haven't figured out yet, we're just rolling off the cuff this episode. We didn't want to just stick to one straight topic for this whole episode. We figured we'd just do it a little different this time, have some fun with it. As you can probably already see, hit a few little topics and trail off in different ways. That's just kind of the fun of it today. Um, there's still a couple bullet points I want to hit on at some point, but definitely want to talk about the expo though. You were mentioning, I know we're still, a little under a year away from it already, but uh, Isn't the one coming up going to be the anniversary?
It seems like I did hear that. Yeah,
Like, what is it, 10th or 20th, something like that?
I want to say 20, but I'm not positive.
So I'm definitely hoping as well that they make this one a little bit extra special. And, obviously I'd love to meet Peter and Ace. If they were able to bring them both there at the same time would be amazing.
What
Um,
if that they announced Kiss acoustic?
oh, man.
Like they do before their shows.
Yeah, like if they was able to have the whole band there at once, that would be something. But
Because yeah, if they was to ever be able to do that, well, you know how they have to do anyway to sell tickets so there's not too many people at one time. They would have to do more than one show so everybody could go because that they were. I mean, everybody's going to everybody go to that.
well, that's the thing. Like, I'd hate to see how much tickets would cost then too if they did
Right.
bring the whole band in.
Yeah, it'd
But
be outrageous.
even if they were able to get like Paul to come back, and then Paul just does like a little acoustic thing like he does on the cruise, and
It'd be great.
but I would, honestly, I mean, obviously I want to meet Paul. He's one of the ones I haven't met. But Peter and Ace, I'd really like to meet them. Um, if they could get at least one of them there, I'd be more than happy. If they were able to get them both there, I'd be
Well,
really happy.
considering the stuff that Gene's doing now, I could see Gene showing up and doing like he's, the solo stuff he's been playing.
I hope so. I mean,
I could see.
again, not sure what Kiss is going to be doing around that time next year, but I'm really hoping that this expo is a little bit bigger as far as the amount of guests and who they have, and maybe even have more than one tribute band if they do have tribute bands again next year, and depending on what happens, maybe have more than just one. Do or make it like a 2-day event again as well.
I know this one Kiss tribute band that might do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've mentioned it, and they seem to have a little hesitance about it because they think, oh, those are the really stickler Kiss fans. I'm like, nah. I was like, trust me. Some of the tribute bands I've seen play that thing, and they were able to fly. Like, I think we would be all right. Like, I wouldn't be concerned.
Yeah, because was it the year before last that I don't even remember the name of the group. It's like
Right.
I didn't stay. I don't know if they performed. I think they were going to perform.
Yeah.
And so I seen a couple of the guys. It's like, that's
Yeah.
it's not right about that.
Yeah, so I don't know, but so what do you think? What's some of your hopes for the expo?
Well, since I've already met Tommy and Eric, officially met Tommy and Eric and Bruce, Paul and Gene would be, Paul especially because I respect him a lot more between the Paul and Gene, but either one.
Hmm.
Ace would be awesome to meet Ace and Peter, either one of them guys, because I don't look for them Peter especially because of he's obviously saying he's going to retire, so this could possibly be our last chance to ever meet Peter if he does the Kiss Expo.
Right. I have an item that's signed by both Peter and Ace, but it was just I bought it off one of the dealers. I want to be able to meet them in person and physically get something signed myself. So you know how it is. It's a whole different feeling
Sure.
to actually have an item signed that you got in person versus just buying one and
Well,
looking
yeah,
at
but
it.
the only alternative is if Peter actually retires and he doesn't make an appearance at where we can go see him,
Right.
say the Kiss Expo or somewhere, we're just going to have to find a guy that's dressed up like the Catman and have him on it.
Oh man.
Which
Another
I don't think that'd be
thing.
the same.
Another thing I want is I want those vendors back, the ones that have all the vintage, merch and collectibles, that kind of stuff. I want that there again. Yeah, I was so ready to blow some money on on a lot of those dealers this year, and unfortunately, there wasn't really none of that stuff there. Other than a few sellers that had some cool stuff. But yeah, as far as guests though, man, like any of the original four would be awesome again. And if they were able to do maybe two of them at once or whatever, and then even some other cool, related people. Like I said before, I'd love to meet Ken Kelly again, and just a lot of people like that. Lydia Chris.
I was going to say that probably even more of a cool person to meet, and would probably be more impossible than Peter and Ace, would be Vinnie Vincent.
Oh man, yeah.
If they could if anyone could actually get Vinnie Vincent to make an appearance, signing autographs or not, just to get an interview with the guy, that'd be a pretty, from what I understand, that'd be pretty.
Well, I think they'd have to know how to get a hold of him in the first place, which seems to be the biggest issue right now. Yeah.
Well, isn't he in? Is he in? Where did they seem like Nashville? Was that the last place? He lives in Nashville or somewhere.
Might have been.
Because I know Tommy on Three Sides had his. Was it his house that went up for sale?
Yeah.
And I don't know where that was located. I know he lives in Minneapolis or in Minnesota.
Oh yeah, he was able to pull up the details.
Right. So maybe.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, he could live here in Ohio now, for all we know. It's. Yeah, that would be like. At this point, it would be kind of the ultimate thing to be able to have him at another expo.
Right.
Because it's just he's become like Sasquatch. He's so.
Well, I think as far as like Vinnie Vincent is sort of a thorn to probably Paul and Gene to a certain extent because of all the circumstances. So I guess is he considered to be, say if he was approachable and said, yeah, I'll do this, is he allowed to do stuff that's Kiss related?
Vinny?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure he could still make expo appearances, but he can't show up in the makeup like he did that one time.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm sure he could. But again, I don't know, like, being that this is ran by Keith LaRue and those guys that work for Kiss, I don't know if Gene and Paul would really, like, if they would even care about who comes to it or not, or...
Well, see, and speaking of that, you probably heard that not too long ago, Doc McGee was supposed to do an interview with Eddie Trunk, and he had to cancel at the last minute.
Right, and then he talked about Eric Singer ducking and running from him, or whatever the case was.
So, I just wonder, is that coming directly from Paul?
Probably. And again, it's like, so you're damning the guy for having an opinion about the current state of Kiss, and he chooses not to support it and embrace it. That's his opinion.
Well, I don't understand why that's such a big deal to them that someone likes or doesn't like something, because they know as their careers went on that some people love the Elder and some people hate the Elder, and because they can't single them out with a name and a face, it makes it okay.
Right, and then but it's okay for them to not like what Ace and Peter do, or at least used to do, but that's okay. They can say all they want about that, but don't give an opinion about the current band, and if you like it or not, and it's like they crucify you almost, is what it seems like. They blackball you. Well,
I know that in the past, whatever album Kiss was currently working on was their best ever. Because and it's understandable for a band to promote in a positive way what they're currently doing. They don't want to put out an album or we'll be working on an album and say, yeah, well, this really sucks, but it's our new album.
Yeah,
so I understand, they don't want to make it a negative thing, but at the same time, it's almost like nothing before existed, because this is the best it's ever going to be, and it's better than anything we've ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, they were saying that about The Elder, and I'm not saying anything negative about The Elder because that's one of my favorite albums, but you know,
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that politic that goes on, and
but because it's their album and their music, they feel like that they have the right to criticize it, which they do. But you know, there's other people that's going to have mixed opinions on it as well. If they're a fan at all, they don't have to like everything.
right. And everybody knows Eddie Trunk's been one of the biggest supporters of Kiss before, and done countless shows with them on there, and you know.
Well, I like Eddie Trunk, and I think and I've listened to a lot of his stuff here recently, some clips that was online about this and that and the other thing. But I think that, first of all, because he's on the radio and has his own radio show, and it's a music metal based thing, and people know him from that metal show and his opinions and what bands he likes, it's automatically set up to just be in your face.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that, I mean, I don't think that it would change anything, but it's almost like that I sort of wish that he wouldn't give his opinions anymore, because, you know, like with Ozzy Osbourne, for example, I don't remember the story behind that, but Sharon won't let Ozzy do anything with Eddie Trunk because of something he had said in the past.
Yeah.
About, I don't know what, about Sharon or Ozzy, something.
Right, and I'm not saying I agree with everything Eddie says, because there's times that I'll hear some stuff and it's almost like, you know, his head's a little inflated at times with
Yeah.
the way he talks about things. So, and then actually, it's kind of recent, but I guess Paul went back on Chris Jericho's podcast. So
Oh.
I haven't listened to it, so that just reminded me that I'm going to have to pull that up and give it a listen, see what he talks about. But so, you know, Eddie Trunk's blackballed with them, but you know, they got that other avenue with Chris Jericho to go on his shows. And
Chris Jericho is a major fan of like hard rock and metal music, because he's been on that metal show doing that Stump the Trunk thing, and you could tell. Well, I think even Eddie Trunk said that he texts back and forth with him all the time, trying to get him on stuff, you know.
And he's got a pretty damn good band going. You know, they started off as sort of a joke band, but then they turned it into a serious thing, and they write some pretty good stuff. Yeah, he's an all around good entertainer. I really enjoy him. But so yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up and listen and see what they talk about. But so I want to jump into this other bullet point, because this could end up being a little lengthy conversation for this point too. Is today, June 12th, is the anniversary of when Kiss recorded the first demos with Eddie Kramer. June 12th, 1973. So, 44 years ago today. Bell Sound Studios. What they do, Strutter, Deuce, Watching You, Black Diamond, 100,000 Years. Am I forgetting one? Cold Gin.
Stairway to Heaven.
But yeah, today's the 44th anniversary of that. And I guess it's not going to be lengthy, so we'll move on to... we just wanted to throw that out there. So I wanted to sort of discuss Gene's solo stuff lately, these solo shows he's been doing. You know, mainly from watching video clips and seeing some of the stuff they do. You know, bringing people up to sing "I Love It Loud," and you know, at the end of the show, bringing a bunch of people up to sing "Rock and Roll All Night," and you know, that kind of stuff. I don't know, is it just me, or I kind of get the feeling that he's almost having more fun doing this right now than what they do in Kiss. You know, because with Kiss, it's just kind of the monotonous thing that he does all the time, but then with his solo stuff, it's like he's having more fun. He's getting to bring people on stage to sing.
Well,
and,
you know, that sort of makes me wonder who's in charge here.
Yeah.
Because Kiss is known for, with the makeup and all everything. They feel like there's certain things they have to do, like I was saying earlier. Um, but I remember that one show where Paul couldn't do it. He had to go
Yeah.
to the hospital.
Yeah.
Uh, and it seems like there was another show too that they did as a three-piece, but I know that one specifically. Gene was having people up on stage, and he was inviting people up, and they were singing. If you see any of that footage, it's the same type of thing.
Hmm.
So that leads me to believe that, and you've even heard Gene say, the stage is a holy ground, and we don't let people up on stage, and this and that. And this was with makeup and stuff, but Paul wasn't there.
Right.
So the fact that he's doing this solo thing and Paul isn't there and he's doing that, I mean, is that what it is? Is that the reasoning that why Kiss is the way it is and Gene Solo is not?
Probably. I don't know. Like I say, I mean, the Kiss show is a Kiss show. It's obviously entertaining as hell, but it is kind of a monotonous thing at the same time because it's pretty much the same routine all the time.
Well,
So
for them especially, it seems like for
Right.
them it would be more monotonous than it would be for a fan, because if you go to the Chicago show and see them and then you go to, say, Cincinnati, from our point of view it's two separate shows, but from their point of view, here we go again, it's the
Yep.
same old thing.
Yep. And I got to think that this is a bit of a breath of fresh air for him, and it's kind of like
Sure
breaking
it is.
out of the monotony and just having fun and the way it used to be. And not only that, but I feel like this band that he's got is like really challenging him to play better and remember the lyrics and whatnot. Because again,
Does
with
he have-
Kiss,
Does he have three guitarists?
yeah, 3 guitarists, and
What I thought.
then the drummer's pretty damn good. And because again with Kiss, it's almost robotic in a way. The structure of the song and the way that the tempo they play it and all that, and then obviously the tuning now with Paul. But with this band, it's almost like they're helping him more so, because you'll see him kind of watching them a lot, to figure out where they're at in the song as far as towards the end, like keep going, or helping out with lyrics or whatnot.
Why do you think that he invites people up on stage? Do you think that he's doing that because they're fans and he's giving them the chance to do something that they wouldn't have normally got to do? Do you think that's only the reason, or?
I think that's part of it, and maybe after all these years, always talking about, oh, the fans are the bosses and blah blah blah, and maybe he felt like it was time to give back a little bit and do that, because from what I understood, he brought people up for that I Love It Loud, but then at the end of the show, they brought like over 60 people on stage to sing Rock and Roll All Night. So
Wow.
it's just like, I just kind of get that feeling that he's kind of having more fun with that right now than the Kiss stuff. And, and it probably is a lot less, I guess, like stressful in a way, because you're not sitting there for a couple hours, putting on the makeup and the costume and all that stuff. You're just going out and playing. And
Well, I think, this is my opinion, for example, when they all did the solo albums in '78,
mhm.
before that, Ace did not sing on any Kiss album. But after that, he sang on every Kiss album he was on.
Yep.
And I think because Gene is doing this solo album, or solo tour rather, I think that it's creating something that didn't exist before.
Mhm.
And it's going to change, which might have been the intention, but it's going to change Kiss in some way, based on, it's like, okay, well, I like doing this better or something.
I think that's kind of what it is, and I still think that that's probably what he's going to continue to do after Kiss is gone. And I was thinking, we had discussed Paul, but it popped in my head the other day that maybe he's going to go back to doing theater, maybe because he was really good at that. So maybe
Possible.
Paul will go back to doing that kind of stuff, and you know, maybe do. I'm sure he'll do a little music on the side because that's always part of you.
Soul Station,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, and that would be awesome. I would love to see that still. Um, but yeah, it's just I just really get that vibe from watching those videos that he's just having a lot more fun with it, and you know he gets to talk more, you know, between songs, which obviously he don't do in Kiss, and you know, telling jokes like he does, and you know, just talking in general. And
I'm surprised of the set list. I'm really, because he's doing a lot of obscure album tracks that he sang on originally. I'm really surprised, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's great. It's just very surprising that he's not doing like the same old. But like you said, it's probably because of that. But you know, it's like with Ace doing the solo when he first started this Space Invader tour. Um, People were questioning, well, why aren't you doing Rip It Out? Why aren't you doing this or that? And and now this is Ace, of course. He says, well, I totally forgot about some of these songs, you know, and he didn't realize that they were important.
yeah,
So I know Gene's a different person altogether, but how does Gene know? I think he does gauge the fans different, and he's aware of it more. But how does he know that people want to hear him do Charisma or, you know, whatever it is? I'm just curious as to how he picks those songs and why certain ones. It's interesting to me. I'd love to know that.
and, you know, his band might have had a little hand in that too. They might have been kind of, you know, poking at him like, hey, Gene, like, let's do, you know, like, we love this song, let's do it, and you know, like, Got Love for Sale, like, that hasn't even been performed with Kiss, and now here he is playing it with his solo band. Um, so I don't know. I think we're starting to sort of see some changes, and actually, I caught a video on YouTube the other day. He was, you know, one of those Comic Con conventions that he did recently. It was his little like Q&A session. I was watching most of that, and he mentioned that here in a couple months he's got another book coming out. So that might have something to do with it too. And I still think there's a little bit of underlying promotion for that box set that's going to eventually come out. I still think that's a little bit of why he's out touring and all that stuff. And but more so than that, it's to break the monotony and have fun. And you know, he probably doesn't like sitting at home for these long amounts of time. And
Well, I think Gene always has to be working,
right,
probably more so than Paul does, because Paul has his family to concentrate on, and he loves all that, you know, from the interviews and stuff I've heard him say. But as far as with Gene, I think that also he's always about self-promotion, but I think that this is just me speculating, the problems that Paul's been having with his voice, you know, and even the shoulder surgery that sort of came out of the blue and stuff, that might be, after a while, it's just like, oh God.
mm-hmm.
You know, does he want to be on stage when he's standing over there at the side listening to Paul and knowing that it's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I know, like, there's probably part of him that cringes when he hears Paul's vocals, but he's not gonna speak up and say it because you know they're doing a lot of them songs on his solo shows that Paul sings, but then you know he's got one of the guys from the band singing, so it's almost like he's almost doing that like as sort of a message in a way, like, you know, I want to, you know, I'm probably reading too much into that, but you know what I mean, like,
Yeah, I mean,
he wants to hear it sung as close to the way it should sound than the way it's been sounding the last however many years. And
well, you know, it's like the thing with a while back with Aerosmith when Steven Tyler was, you know, he fell off the stage and
yeah,
and he had to take painkillers or whatever, and he got back into that spiral of being addicted to them, I guess, from what I read. And it's almost like the band turned against him,
yeah,
you know, because it's like, okay, well, he's done and he's not going to come out of it, and you know, because they feel like they're reliving the past. Now with with Gene and Paul, Gene's never had to deal with all that stuff with Paul before. So, and he's always said in interviews that, Paul's great. He's always great. He always
Mm.
looks great. You've heard him say stuff like that. And now that he's seeing that things are going wrong, and Paul's not even doing it on purpose
Yeah.
to a certain degree. I mean, he can't help his voice. But then you see him screaming and yelling and stuff, which he doesn't do as much on this last tour as he was doing all up until this tour. Between the songs, and he'll just go on and on. It's like Gene probably is like, oh my God, why is he still
Yeah.
doing it? He can't do that anymore.
There's a lot of him testing his voice, like during a lot of the songs I've noticed lately. Like he'll kind of add in a little extra, high, oohs and little scream things here and there. Like it's almost like he's testing his voice as the song's going to see, what, how high he can get or what notes he can hit.
Talking about Paul.
Paul, yeah. I've noticed that lately. That's just my view of it. I feel like he's kind of testing his own voice as the songs go right now.
Well, I think you said that his voice was fine when we seen him in concert, and then after his shoulder surgery, wasn't it you that said they might have had what did they put down your throat?
That
during
trach.
surgery? And that might have ruined it.
Yeah, because I mean, when the Vegas thing, when we watched that, I was like, man, Paul's sounding pretty damn good again for where he's at. And then even at that show, it sounded pretty damn good. And then all of a sudden, you started seeing these video clips from the recent tour, and it's like, what the hell happened again? And I don't, we don't know this either, but I almost wonder if sometimes maybe Gene has been trying to get Paul to go get some work done to try to repair it, and Paul being hard-headed like he can be, just probably doesn't listen because he's just more concerned with having fun on stage still and being the showman. That
Well, I think that might be where those comments that Gene said came from.
yeah,
He might be under the impression that we're going to quit real soon
right,
based on the things that's going on and how he feels. And they could have had that conversation. They might not have had that conversation.
well, I think that's one of the main reasons Kiss is going to quit soon, is probably mainly because of Paul. And if Gene had it his way, they would keep on doing it probably until they literally couldn't do it anymore. But now Gene has to give this stock answer of, oh, we can't do this in our 70s and blah blah blah. So that's kind of maybe his way of covering up that it's more because of Paul and his voice.
Well, the thing is, like the Rolling Stones or what, they're in their 70s, like Keith and Mick.
Oh yeah.
So, but the difference is, like I was saying a minute ago, if Kiss would just take off the costumes and makeup, I know Paul's vocals is going to be the same, but if they do acoustic even, or whatever it takes, they could continue as Kiss they could do another 10 or 20 years if they wanted to.
Exactly.
If they just slow down and just, okay, we're just the band now. We're not going to be this Kiss that we're going to do what we can do, and we're not going to go beyond that.
Exactly. And I know it's going to be weird, I guess, when Kiss is done as the band, but I guess if Gene's still going to do stuff on the side and whatever Paul or the other guys decide, I mean, I guess that'll be a nice take home prize, if you will, compensation, to at least still have one of the members or a couple doing something to kind of keep the Kiss thing going in a way, versus having the actual band and the full blown show. But again, that's a couple years down the road, or who knows what's going to happen. It could be next year for all we know. Hopefully not. But
What do you think that Paul and Gene will continue once the band is over, if there's a Kiss 2.0 going on at the same time?
Yeah, because there's always going to be that draw to see one of the original members playing a concert that's playing those songs whether there is that, you know, I guess glorified tribute band is what it would be. Um, you know, and there's kind of a lot of that today with a lot of different artists. You know, you got um, you know, a lot of these tribute bands that are out there, but then, you know, I don't know, say Journey, but then Journey's touring. A lot of people still want to go see the real thing too, and I feel like that's kind of what will still be going with Kiss. I mean, obviously it won't be the band Kiss like I was saying, but you know, you'll probably have Gene doing shows still, and you know, maybe Paul will do some stuff. But I think, you know, a lot of people will still flock to go see those shows just to still hear, you know, one of the original members that sang a lot of those songs. You know.
So do you think that, you know, for example, Kiss 2.0 is up and running? Do you think that Paul and Gene, considering how they like to be in control and stuff, and obviously that would still be their band in a sense, do you
Right.
think that they would plan their solo tour around the Kiss 2.0 tour so they could be present at those shows, not to perform, but in, you know, backstage to oversee it, or at least to oversee the tour as it starts? And how do you think that would go, I wonder?
Probably not, because they didn't do that when they had that football team. They would be out on tour, and
So you think they would just go ahead and hire people that they trusted that could get it rolling, and then they just check in once in a while, maybe?
oh yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if,
Like Rock and Bruise, I guess, is similar to that too.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Gene, I don't know, playing a show with Kiss 2.0, like, you know, like sort of opening up for them in a way, and um, which that's probably not ever going to happen, but you know, who knows? But I don't know. It's just, you know, like I've said, you know, we're probably just a few years away from knowing what's going to happen, but I'm hoping it's not anytime sooner than that, or hopefully they do go a little longer than.
Well, I think we need to have a fortune teller on the show.
Yes, yeah, that's what we need, a psychic. Tell us what the future of history is, damn it. We gotta know. That's how bad us Kiss fans are. Like, we can't just sit and wait for it to happen. We want to know now.
Yeah, like when's Kissology 4 coming out? That's
that,
what I really want to know.
that'll stump even the psychic. You got me there.
I was reading about that online today because I ever so often I'll check in to see if there's any new information, and the same story came up, the most recent one, where it said, you know, Tommy Thayer said it's 85% done, and he doesn't know what the holdup is. It was supposed to be released back in 2011, I think, or something. I don't remember what year it was. And originally, and he said, I think that might have been just what we were hoping for. I don't know if that was an actual release date. He said, but it's going to be chronicling where 3 left off, and, you know, but I guess in the same article, Paul Stanley said that Kissology 3 outsold Kissology 1, and he thought that, you know, because listening to people over the years, they would want the earlier stuff, but he said 3 outsold 1, and my opinion is it's probably because everybody already has the stuff on 1, because it's been out for years and years. Now, that might not have anything to do with it, but
Well,
you
now
know,
a lot of
I
the
like Kissology 4 just because it's, I mean, it's a Kiss product for one.
well, now a lot of people know that you can get better quality stuff on bootleg that's on 1 versus buying that. So that might have affected it. But so Kissology 4 has been 85% done now for 2 years. Is that
At
correct?
At least 2 years.
See, that right there is, it's just
And
bullshit.
Tommy said in the interview, he said that, you know, it's been pushed back and it's been put on hold because there's all kinds of other stuff always going on. And he says we want to be able to concentrate on it and put our focus on it, you know, like it deserves to be before we can, you know, promote it and release it. And I understand, I do agree with that, but at the same time, some of the other stuff that's came out is less important to me than, say, a Kissology 4. And it's not just because I really want that. I really think that, I don't know, I can't think of an example of something, but, you know, there's, like they did the Love Gun Deluxe.
Right.
to me, that was out of left field. That was just totally out of the blue. Now, there's a lot of that behind the scenes stuff that they've been trying to do those albums for years, deluxe versions, and we know now some of it that's fell through and this and that. But the Kissology thing is they've it'd go like each volume went like quadruple platinum. They've sold like tons and tons of those, so they already know that that's a money maker.
Yeah, there's other things that I'm more excited about than the Kissology 4 now at this point. Like you said, like more deluxe editions of albums. I'd like to see another box set that has a bunch of the demos and more of that stuff too, or even the Gene Simmons box set. I'm kind of more excited for that right now, and because I feel like the Kissology 4 thing is never gonna happen. So I don't know.
Well, I would like to think that Kissology 4 would be the beginning of another, because Doc and Tommy both said at the last the Kiss Expo before last, if I can spit it out.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
That there's going to be a 4 and a 5.
Well, what's taking so long? Are they going to start blurring out Ace and Peter from all the footage, or are they going to CGI Tommy and Eric's faces over them or something? I mean,
my opinion is, and I don't know, but my opinion is, as far as like, okay, when Monster came out, it's been how many years since Monster? And we don't have another Kiss album.
What's it been, 5 years now already?
Just about. So I think it's because they don't have a distributor. I don't know if that's why, because I know VH1 Classic, or I guess it was VH1, did the first 3 Kissologies. And that was a contract that they signed for, I think, 3 volumes. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think that it's something to do with that. But it seems like after all this time, they had that ironed out. I mean, I don't know the circumstances of what goes into trying to release a product because they've done Kiss Rocks Vegas. What label was that on?
Kiss Records, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
Pretty sure.
And then the Deluxe Love Gun, was that their current record label, or?
I believe it was. Where is it?
Because both of those came out.
I want to say it was. Was it Polygram? I can't remember now.
But since Kissology 3, we've had Sonic Boom, right?
Yeah.
And Monster. I don't think Kiss Symphony. I think that was before that, wasn't it? Or was that after?
It might have been right after, actually.
I don't know if all the records are on the same label or not. I'm not real sure.
I'm pretty sure Symphony is on that Kiss Records.
Was it Sanctuary back then?
Yeah, they were on Sanctuary at that time.
Because also Rock the Nation, and what was the other? Didn't they have another? Seems like there was another live one in there before Kiss Rocks Vegas. Maybe there wasn't.
It's Rock the Nation, and there was the the Symphony.
Yeah, maybe that's one.
Maybe not. Maybe that was it. Just those 3.
But I mean, there's been Kiss product come out, and then as far as that new thing that's greatest hits called Kiss World, I don't know what record label that's on. By the way, did you see the commercial for that?
No, I haven't.
You'll have to put it up right here.
Damn it.
And it's got Tommy and Eric's face on the cover.
I saw that, and then they had to fix it because they did have their faces on the top, and Gene and Paul was on the bottom, and everybody was throwing a fit about that.
Well, the song list on there is sort of odd because it starts out with Crazy Nights, or Crazy Nights, and then Rock and Roll Night is the second track, which is strange, and then it has like It has a song from Killers, and it's not Nowhere to Run. It's from A Legend Tonight, I think, which is sort of an oddball just thrown in there. I'm not saying it ain't a great song. I love those songs,
Yeah.
but the track listing is not very. I don't know. I mean, you sort of don't want the same track listing over and over on a greatest hits, but you sort of expect it, or they shouldn't even make a greatest hits. But that last compilation, well, the last two compilations that came out, that Kiss 40, I think that's a better compilation. One, it's two discs instead of one, and then the compilation before that was the very best of Kiss,
Hmm.
which is a better compilation, I think.
Right. I mean, if you're trying to fulfill your contract obligation of so many albums by putting out greatest hits, don't do that. Put out more of these deluxe editions, or put out a freaking official, like, even if it's just a 2 disc thing that has more demos and stuff like that on it that we haven't heard. Put out that
I'm
kind of stuff.
surprised. I'm surprised that there wasn't a soundtrack to the Scooby Doo movie.
Yeah, true.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know a lot of those songs were on that disc that came with Sonic Boom, but they had that one "Don't mess with my ascot" or whatever.
Oh
That's
yeah.
"Don't touch my ascot." That's it.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, they should put that soundtrack out. They should officially put out a Phantom soundtrack, and
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know. They just throw out all these greatest hits just to fulfill a contract obligation. That's what a lot of bands do. It's like, put out something that's more what the fans want. Like, how many freaking greatest hits do you need? How many different variations? It's
They
all.
have they have plenty. 'Cause
It's one thing when it was like double platinum, like that greatest hits, because they were all different mixes of the songs, and it was something kind of fresh to hear, but not when you're just putting the same old album tracks on there.
yeah, my favorite compilation is still Double Platinum.
Yeah.
It's still the best one. There's only one thing on there that and as a kid I didn't ever question it, but when they have that little intro to Rock Bottom
Mm-hmm.
and not the song, but aside from that, it's almost perfect compilation. There's a few key songs that's not on there, but because I don't think "Shock Me" is on there, and I think that should have been on there.
Right. Right.
Those Love Guns on there,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, it's still one of my favorite greatest hits, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and even with that Kiss 40, I mean, they threw on what, maybe 2 demos and, like, I think a live track or something, but you know that wasn't that much different, but at least it was a little bit something different to kind of make it worth buying.
Now, the best compilation they've ever put together, I was wrong. I said Double Platinum. The best one is "You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best."
Oh God.
That was different.
Oh, it's like saying the best solo album was "Asshole."
I knew he was going to say that. By the way, if you want to see the anniversary of that album, go to our Facebook. I posted that the other day. Did you see that?
What? You posted what?
You have to go look.
What kind of garbage? An anniversary of the album?
Yeah.
Like an anniversary edition?
No, it was like the day it came out, today in history type thing.
Oh, good Lord. Why would they want to celebrate that?
It's all about you.
Oh, God forbid. But if there's one thing Gene should apologize, it's that.
Well, at least he's not doing any of those songs on his solo tour.
That'll be the next thing.
Hey, I think it'd be great if he did Firestarter. That'd be funny.
Yeah, they'll bring him to the expo next year. Gene Simmons playing the Asshole album in its entirety. Fuck.
That'd be the name of his band.
Acoustic set. Ugh. Well, should we wrap this thing up, or anything else we want to randomly hit?
Well,
Talked about the Gene solo stuff and a little bit about the demos. That was kind of the two main things I wanted to mention. I could show Had my buddy pick up a shirt for me at the Gene show the other night. Ended up going with this one. The one I really wanted was sold out, but this one was pretty cool too.
Is that Gene there in the very last of the lineup? Is that?
Yeah, I assume it's supposed to be him. It's got the tongue out, the axe base. This. It's kind of like evolution of the demon in a way, but yet he's a skeleton. I don't know.
Without
I
makeup,
thought,
of course.
I thought it would have been cooler if it was like the evolution and it was actually like him in makeup and costume. Like Love Gun era is what I'm picturing. But that's still kind of cool in itself. I appreciate it.
You know, those shirts will be worth a lot of money in a little while.
Yeah, it could be. I'd still like to get that other one. The one I originally wanted was the Gene Simmons band, kind of like a logo, and it had the axe bases like crossing.
Does he sell those shirts on his website? I wonder.
I'm thinking he does. I'm gonna go in there and check, because if he does, I'd like to order that one that they were out of at the show. But yeah, it looked like, because my buddy sent me a picture of what they had, so I could pick real quick, and it looked like he had at least 5 different designs at the show. Nothing was a Kiss shirt. It was all Gene Simmons stuff. So yeah, I'm interested to see if it's on the website. But you know how much the shirts cost?
I don't even have a clue.
Take a guess.
I'd say $50.
Close.
Less than $50.
Mm-hmm. 40
Really?
for a shirt.
Wow. Well, you know, when Kiss is over and done with, whatever Gene decides to do, if it's this, he's automatically set his prices already to where it's going to be, it's like Elton John, for example, is the first thing that comes to mind. And Rod Stewart and some of those guys, their prices, from what I've heard, is outrageous. I'm not saying they're not a good artist, and I like a lot of their music, but I can't see paying, some of those prices for certain artists,
Right. I mean, I think we talked about this before we started recording, but Gene, his backstage, meet and greet, he's charging $5,000-$6,000, and then if you want the the stage use bass and all that pack, it's like $10,000-$12,000. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then so I looked at Ace Frehley's stuff today just to kind of get a comparison, and you can get a signed guitar from him and the whole meet and greet thing for $500. I mean, that's much more reasonable. I don't care the status of each one or who it is. It's ridiculous. That's damn near buying a car just to go backstage and get a bass that he played on stage. And sorry, not for me.
Well, I understand where the money is now and how that people have to make money, and we know that Gene isn't hurting for money. But regardless if they need the money or not, I think they need to be fair, and for their fans, because everyone, and Gene would say this probably, he would say, well, this is only for people that can afford it. Well, there's not too many people that can afford those kinds of prices. I mean,
right. Don't act like all of your fans are all these wealthy snobs or something that can drop that kind of money. We're not all like that.
Yeah, I'm curious, how many of those photo books did they sell that was
right
outrageous? I bet they didn't sell very many, if any of those.
Ace is more realistic, down to earth, if you will, which is kind of ironic. But I would seriously try to do that all day long if he would do a show around here. I mean, that would be awesome. But not what Gene's charging, not for sure. No way. And then let alone you go to a Kiss show and to try to do that backstage meet and greet, like how much they charge for that, and then how much they charge for the Kiss cruise and all. It's a little crazy at times, but it always has been. Cue the kitty.
Yeah, he's begging for his mom. Just go on. Go lay down. It'll be all
Let's go
right.
on. Well, all right then. I think we're gonna get out of here. Um, this one kind of went by quick. That's what happens when we don't stick to a topic.
Mhm.
I like that. So that's gonna do it. I don't think there's any KISS events coming up anytime soon. Nothing. I know KISS isn't doing anything until July. Um, nothing that either of us have planned coming up as far as anything KISS related. So get on our Facebook page, leave some comments about the show, leave comments under this show here on YouTube. Let us know some of your opinions about what we discussed, and let us know what you think about Gene and the solo tour. If you kind of feel the same way, if you think he's kind of enjoying this more, and what the case may be. So, all right then. Until next week, we're out of here.